5 years ago, the rain fell like judgment. The kind of rain that turns earth to mud and mud to graves. The kind that makes you forget there was ever such a thing as sunlight or warmth or home. Thora Steelheart was 22 years old and she was dying in a ditch. The border skirmish had lasted 3 hours. 3 hours of steel and screaming of blood, mixing with rainwater of warriors on both sides learning the same lesson they always learned in war, that courage doesn't stop blades and honor doesn't heal wounds. She'd led her first war patrol, 10 warriors under her command, young, eager, believing in the righteousness of their cause the way only the young can believe in anything. The ambush came at dawn, human militia better positioned than their intelligence suggested. Someone had miscalculated. Someone had underestimated. In war, those mistakes have names and faces and families. By the time the retreat sounded, Thora had 7 warriors left, and a wound in her side that pumped blood with every heartbeat, painting the mud around her in darkening pools. The retreat left her behind, not cruelty, tactics. You don't risk 10 to save 1, not in war, not when the enemy is still searching for survivors to finish. She pressed her hand to the wound, felt warmth spilling between her fingers, felt her strength draining into the earth like water from a broken vessel. This is how it ends, she thought. 22 years, 5 battles, 1 mistake. The rain hammered down. Thunder rolled across the Cascade foothills like the drums of some distant, indifferent god. She closed her eyes. That's when she heard the footsteps. Boot leather on mud. Human gait. Single person. She tried to reach for her blade, but her arm wouldn't obey. Tried to call out a challenge, but her voice came as a whisper. The footsteps stopped beside her. Jesus Christ, a man's voice said. Young, unsteady, horrified. Thora forced her eyes open. Through the rain and the gathering darkness, she saw him. Human, maybe 27, dark hair plastered to his skull, worn jacket, no armor, no weapons she could see. Civilian, probably. Wrong place, catastrophically wrong time. He should run. Any sensible human would run. Wounded orc in a ditch, fresh from battle blood everywhere. Run and don't look back. He dropped to his knees beside her. Hey, he said. Hey, stay with me. Don't close your eyes. His hands moved to her wound. She tried to pull away instinct overriding thought. He was human. She was orc. They were supposed to be killing each other. I'm not going to hurt you, he said. His voice was steady now. The horror replaced by something else. Focus. Purpose. I was a medic. Border wars 3 years ago. I know what I'm doing. But I need you to hold still. She didn't have the strength to argue. He tore his shirt. Not hesitation, not ceremony. Just ripped the fabric and pressed it to her wound, wadding the cloth, applying pressure with practiced efficiency. Blade got you deep, he said. Nicked something important. You're going to need real help, but this'll buy you time. Why? The words scraped out of her throat. He looked at her then, really looked at her. Green eyes, clear, direct. Because you're dying, he said simply. That's all that matters. Not because she was human or orc, not because of politics or alliances or the complicated calculus of war, because she was dying. And that was enough. He worked in the rain, packed the wound, tore more fabric from his shirt, fashioned a pressure bandage with the skill of someone who'd done this before in worse conditions. His hands were gentle but sure, the hands of a healer. There's an overturned supply cart 30 yards east, he said. I'm going to get you under it. Get you out of the rain. Can you move? She tried, failed. The world spun. He slid his arms under her, lifted. She was 200 pounds of muscle and armor, and he was human, no enhancement, no orc strength. But he lifted her anyway, grunted with effort, staggered, kept moving. The cart was where he said. He lowered her beneath it. Shelter from the rain, not much, but something. Stay here, he said. Your people will come looking for their dead. They'll find you. You should go, she managed, before they find you. He smiled, small, sad. Yeah, I should. He stood, looked at her one more time. You're going to be okay. You are tough. I can tell. Then he was gone. Footsteps fading into rain, into darkness, into memory. Thora lay there, his shirt pressed to her wound, and waited for her people to find her. They did. 2 hours later. By then she'd lost enough blood that the world had gone gray and distant, but the makeshift bandage had held. The pressure had slowed the bleeding, bought her just enough time. She survived because a human medic had torn his shirt for an enemy. She never learned his name, never saw his face clearly enough to remember details. But she kept the cloth, blood-stained, rain-soaked, precious. For 5 years she carried it. Every battle, every march, every quiet night when she wondered what kind of man saved someone who by all logic and history and culture should be his enemy. For 5 years she wondered if she'd ever see him again. For 5 years she carried a debt that couldn't be measured in gold or steel or blood. A life debt, the kind that changes everything. The storm hit like the gods were settling old scores. Thora Steelheart, 27, now scarred and tested and harder than she'd been at 22, stood at the tree line and watched the wall of rain advance across the valley like an invading army. "That's not a storm," Bryn Wildmane said beside her. "That's a statement." "It's a problem," Vera Blackstone corrected. The oldest of them, 38, with a scar that ran from temple to jaw and eyes that had seen enough weather to respect it. "We're 3 hours from camp. In that storm, we're dead." Nick's dark math was already calculating. Always calculating. 30 years old and her mind worked like an abacus, clicking through probabilities and outcomes with mechanical precision. "Probability of reaching camp before storm hits 4%, she announced. "Probability of finding suitable shelter within 1 mile, 73%. Probability of that shelter being occupied, 41%. Probability of—" "Shelter," Thora interrupted, where Nix pointed south. "Human farmstead, quarter mile, single structure, isolated. Intel from last patrol suggests 1 occupant. Poor farmer, no military value." Thora looked at the advancing storm. Lightning cracked the sky. Thunder followed, the kind that you feel in your chest before you hear it in your ears. "We knock," she said. "We ask. We don't raid. We're 4 armed orc warriors showing up at a human's door in the middle of a storm," Bryn pointed out. "That's not asking. That's threatening." "Then we ask politely," Thora said. The storm was 30 seconds behind them when they reached the cabin. It was exactly what their intelligence had said. Small, worn, the kind of structure held together by hope and stubborn refusal to fall down. Smoke rose from the chimney. Warm light glowed in the single window. Someone was home. Thora raised her fist, hammered on the door, not gentle. The storm was screaming now, wind trying to tear the world apart. Gentle wouldn't be heard. No answer. She pounded again, harder. Inside she heard movement, footsteps, hesitation. The door cracked open. 6 inches, enough to see a face. Human, male, maybe 30. Dark hair, worn shirt. Suspicious eyes that widened when they saw what was on his doorstep. 4 orc warriors, armed, armored, dripping rain. Looking like exactly the kind of problem that shows up in nightmares and border town horror stories. The humans stared at them. They stared back. Lightning split the sky behind them. Thunder cracked like the world breaking in half. "We need shelter," Thor said. Not asking, not threatening, stating fact. The storm. The human looked at her, then at Vera, then at Bryn and Nix, then at the storm which was now actively trying to murder everything in a 5-mile radius. His hand moved to the door. For a moment, Thora thought he'd slam it shut, lock it, leave them to the storm. He opened it wider instead, stepped aside. "Come in," he said, just like that. No questions, no demands, no visible fear, though there had to be fear. You don't open your door to 4 armed orcs without fear. But he opened it anyway. Thora moved first. Through the door, into the cabin, the others followed. Vera's hand rested on her sword pommel. Not aggressive, just ready. Because this could still be a trap, an ambush, 100 different kinds of disaster. The human closed the door, sealed them in together. 4 orcs and 1 human in a space barely large enough for 3. The cabin was poor, honest poor, not the kind of poor that comes from laziness or bad choices, the kind that comes from bad luck in a world that doesn't care. 3 chickens in a corner coop, Washington, Jefferson, and Franklin. He'd apparently named them after founding fathers, because even in poverty, humans found strange humor. A pot over the fire, watery stew, mostly potatoes. Furniture that had been repaired too many times. Walls that let in draft despite obvious attempts at chinked gaps. But it was warm, dry, shelter. The human grabbed towels, threadbare, patched. He handed them out like hospitality was normal. Like 4 armed orcs in his cabin was just another Tuesday evening. "I'll get more wood for the fire," he said. "And blankets. I have blankets." Vera watched him with the wariness of someone who'd survived 38 years by never trusting convenient kindness. "You're not afraid," Vera said. Not a question, an observation. The human paused, looked at her. "I'm terrified," he said simply, "but you needed shelter and I have a roof. Seems straightforward." He moved to a chest, pulled out blankets, handed them to Nix, who took them with the careful precision she brought to everything. "There's stew," he said, gesturing to the pot. "Not much, but it's hot." "You're offering to feed us?" Bryn couldn't hide her surprise. "You're in my home during a storm that sounds like it's trying to punch holes in reality," the human said. "Yes, I'm feeding you. That's just—" He paused. "That's just what you do." Thora stared at him, something about his voice, something about the way he moved, something about the gentle certainty in his hands as he arranged blankets and checked the fire. Something familiar. But that was impossible. She'd never been to this part of the border, never seen this cabin, never met this human. Still, something. The storm raged outside. Inside, an awkward silence settled over the space. 4 warriors and 1 farmer, all acutely aware they were from different worlds, different sides, different everything. Nix broke the silence with numbers. Probability of roof collapse, 17%. Probability of storm passing by dawn, 89%. Probability of— "Do you always do that?" the human asked. Not rudely, curious. "Always," Nix said. "Probability is certainty's closest cousin." "What's certain is we're dry," Vera said. "And you're showing us hospitality despite every reason not to." "Why?" The human looked at her. "Would you rather I didn't?" "I'd rather I understood." "Storm's trying to kill you," the human said. "I'm not about to help it." It was then that Thora noticed his arms, bare in the warm cabin. And on his left forearm, visible in the firelight, a scar. Old, well-healed, long. The kind you get from a blade that got closer than it should have. The kind you get in war. "You were military," Thora said. Not a question. He looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. His eyes moved over her face, lingered, moved on, like he was searching for something and not finding it. "Medic," he said. "Border wars, 3 years. Got out 5 years ago. Came here. Haven't left since." 5 years ago, the pieces started clicking together in Thora's mind. 5 years ago, this part of the border. A medic, a human medic who'd been in the border wars and gotten out right around the time of the skirmish where she'd nearly died in a ditch. Her hand moved to her side, to where the scar lived under her armor. The scar she'd carried for 5 years. The scar that had a matching story, a matching moment, a matching debt. She looked at his face again. Older now, weathered by 5 years of poor farming and isolated living. But the eyes were the same. Green, clear, direct. The same eyes that had looked at her in the rain and said, "Because you're dying, that's all that matters." "Thora, Vera's voice, concerned. "What's wrong?" Loving was wrong, everything was right. Possibly incredibly against all probability and logic, everything was right. The human who'd saved her life. The medic in the rain. The man whose shirt she'd carried for 5 years. He was right here, in this cabin, in this moment. And he didn't recognize her. Of course he didn't. 5 years ago, she'd been covered in mud and blood and rain, barely conscious, face half hidden. Just another dying orc in a ditch. He'd saved her and left. Probably never thought about her again. Why would he? But she'd thought about him. For 5 years. And now she had to decide, tell him or stay silent. The storm hammered the roof. The fire crackled. 3 chickens clucked softly in their corner. The world continued turning, waiting for her decision. "Your name," Thora said. "What's your name?" "Declan," he said. "Declan Graves." Declan Graves, the name of the man who'd saved her life. the name she'd never known. I'm Thora Steelheart, she said. Stood, stepped toward the fire, toward the light, toward truth. 5 years ago, there was a skirmish. Thornwood Valley, border territory, dawn, rain, bad ambush, worse retreat. Declan's expression shifted, memory stirring. I remember. I was hunting nearby, heard the fighting, stayed hidden until it was over. After it was over, Thora continued, you found someone, an orc, wounded badly, bleeding out in a ditch. His eyes widened, the memory crystallizing. You, me, silence. Absolute. Even the storm seemed to quiet waiting. You were dying, Declan said softly. I hoped, but I didn't think you'd make it. Thora reached into her armor, into the small pouch she kept against her heart, pulled out the cloth, blood-stained, 5 years old, faded brown where blood had dried, still bearing the shape of torn fabric, the desperate bandage that had saved her life. She held it up. Your shirt. Declan stared at the cloth, at the evidence of a moment 5 years past, a moment he'd probably relegated to memory filed away under things I did that didn't matter. But it had mattered. To her, it had mattered more than gold or glory or any of the things warriors were supposed to value. You kept it, he said. I carried it, Thora corrected. Every battle, every march, every night, for 5 years. Bryn whistled low. Sister, that's a life debt, Vera finished. Her voice had changed, gone formal. Thora, if you're saying what I think you're saying, I'm saying this human saved my life, Thora said. 5 years ago. Didn't ask my name, didn't ask my clan, didn't ask her payment or promise or anything. He saw someone dying, and he helped. She turned to her sisters, to the warriors who'd followed her through fire and blood, to the witnesses she needed for what came next. In orc tradition, a life debt is sacred, more than gold, more than steel, more than blood oath. She paused, let the words settle. I've carried this debt for 5 years. Now I'm here. He's here, and I can finally pay it. Declan raised a hand. You don't owe me anything. I was a medic. Helping wounded is what medics do. You helped an enemy, Thora said. That's not duty. That's choice. Still don't need payment. I'm not offering payment. Thora looked at Vera, at Bryn, at Nyx, at the 3 warriors who'd witnessed everything. I'm offering claim. The word hung in the air like a blade suspended before the fall. Bryn's eyes went wide. Nyx stopped calculating mid-probability. Vera's hand moved from her sword to her chest over her heart, the orc gesture for sacred oath. Vera said carefully. You understand what you're saying. I understand perfectly. Claim is binding, Vera continued. Witnessed by sisters, accepted by the claimed. It's not something you take back. I know. It's not something you do lightly. I know. Bryn stepped forward. Sister, you have carried that cloth for 5 years and we all knew what it meant to you. But claim that's forever. I know, Thora said again. Turned back to Declan, who stood frozen, clearly understanding none of this but sensing its weight. 5 years ago, you made a choice. Help someone who should have been your enemy. You chose mercy over safety, kindness over logic. She held up the blood-stained cloth. I'm making a choice too. Not mercy, not kindness. Strategy. Strategy, Declan repeated. For 15 years our peoples have fought the border wars, Thora said. Hundreds dead, thousands wounded, families destroyed on both sides. And what have we gained? Nothing. Stalemate, hatred, more death. She took a step closer. But you showed me something 5 years ago. Showed me that humans don't have to be enemies. That mercy is possible. That maybe, just maybe, there's another way. Another step. If I claim you witnessed by my sisters bound by orc law, we create something new. An alliance. A bridge. One human and one orc joined by life debt and sacred oath. You're proposing, Declan struggled for words. What exactly are you proposing? I'm proposing peace, Thora said simply. One union at a time. One symbol at a time. You want an end to war, so do I. This claim, this bond, it's not about love or romance or any of that. It's tactics. She held out the cloth to him. I'm offering you protection. resources, alliance with the Steelheart clan. In return, you become a bridge between our peoples, living proof that peace is possible. Declan took the cloth, held it carefully. And if I say no, then I pay my life debt another way, Thora said honestly. Gold, service, whatever you ask, but the opportunity, the chance to change something, to end something, that opportunity is lost. The storm raged, the fire crackled, the moment stretched. Declan looked at the cloth, at Thora, at the three orc warriors watching with the solemnity of witnesses to something that would echo through clans and councils and the complicated politics of two peoples trying not to kill each other. You're not asking me to fall in love with you, Declan said slowly. You're asking me to be a symbol. I'm asking you to be a bridge, Thora corrected. Love isn't required. Commitment is. Loyalty is. The willingness to stand in the middle ground and refuse to move when both sides pull at you. That sounds harder than war. It is. Thora's expression softened slightly. But you did it once already, 5 years ago. Stood in the middle ground between hatred and mercy. Chose mercy. I didn't think about it that much. I just helped. Exactly. Thora's voice carried absolute certainty. You just helped. That's what makes you right for this. You don't see enemy or ally. You see person. That's the bridge we need. Declan was quiet for a long moment. Outside, the storm screamed its fury at a world that wouldn't bow to it. Inside, a man stood at a crossroads he'd never imagined walking. Finally, he spoke. If I say yes, what happens next? I will return to my clan, Thora said. Report this claim to my father, War Chief Gorak Steelheart. He'll test you. There will be trials. Combat, wisdom, endurance. It won't be easy. And if I fail, then the claim is void. I'm disgraced, and the opportunity is lost. So I'd be risking your reputation. You'd be risking both our futures, Thora said, and maybe the future of peace itself. No pressure. Despite everything, Declan laughed. Short, sharp, the laugh of someone realizing they're standing on the edge of something vast. This is insane. Completely, Thora agreed. I'm a poor farmer with 3 chickens and a goat that hates everyone. Noted. I don't know orc culture. Don't know your ways. Don't know what claiming even really means beyond what you've said. You'll learn. Declan looked at the cloth again, at the blood stain that had dried brown years ago, at the physical evidence of the moment that had changed everything without him knowing it. Yes, he said quietly. The word fell into silence like a stone into still water. Ripples spreading outward, changing everything. Yes, Thora repeated, making sure, making certain. Yes. Declan met her eyes. Not because I understand, not because this makes sense, but because you're right. War needs to end. And if me being a symbol, a bridge, whatever, if that helps, he paused. Then yes, I'll do it. Thora felt something shift in her chest, relief, satisfaction, and something else she didn't have a name for. She placed her hand over her heart, the orc gesture for sacred vow. Then hear this witness by Vera Blackstone, Bryn Wildmane, and Nyx Darkmath. I, Thora Steelheart, claim Declan Graves. By life debt carried 5 years. By blood spilled and saved. By the mercy shown when mercy was impossible. Her voice rang with formality. He is mine. I am his shield. I am his strength. I am his bridge to my people. This claim is made freely. This claim is witnessed. This claim is binding. She lowered her hand, looked at her sisters. Witnesses. Witnessed, Vera said solemnly. Witnessed. Bryn echoed, still looking slightly stunned. Witnessed, Nyx confirmed. Probability of this claim changing the course of border politics, 74%. Probability of... We get it, Nyx, Bryn muttered. Thora turned back to Declan. It's done, you're claimed. We're bound. The formal ceremony will come later after my father approves. But this right here, this is the moment that matters. Declan stood there holding the blood-stained cloth, looking like a man who just agreed to something vast and terrifying and maybe possibly important. So what now, he asked. Now, thou. Thora glanced at the pot over the fire, at the watery stew. Now we eat, because I've been marching for 6 hours and I'm starving. The tension broke. Not completely, but enough. They ate. Watery stew that was more water than substance. Divided 5 ways, it was barely enough to count as a meal. But it was warm, shared, and in the sharing something shifted. Vera told stories of battles. Bryn showed off her collection of interesting rocks, each one taken from a significant fight. Nix calculated the exact probability of the roof lasting through the storm, now up to 83%, which she considered comforting. And Thora sat beside Declan, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. The blood-stained cloth now rested on the mantle above the fire. A symbol, a promise, a beginning. 3 weeks, Thora said as the storm finally began to ease. Maybe 4. Time for me to return to clan report, get my father's approval. Then we'll come back. All of us, the whole clan. How many is that? Declan asked. About 200. Declan choked slightly on his stew. 200 orcs showing up here. You're joining Steelheart clan, Thora said. They need to meet you, test you, decide if you're worthy. And if they decide I'm not, Thora met his eyes, then I fight them because my claim is my word, and I don't break my word. The storm passed. Dawn came cold and clear. The world looked washed clean, born again, ready for something new. Thora and her warriors stood at the door. Time to leave. Time to begin the long process of turning this impossible night into something real. 3 weeks, Thora said to Declan. Be ready. How do I prepare for 200 orcs testing me? Declan asked. You don't, Vera said from behind Thora. You survive. That's all anyone can do. Bryn clapped Declan on the shoulder hard enough to stagger him. You'll be fine, probably. 60-40 odds. Those aren't comforting odds, Declan said. Nix's probability calculations say 72% chance of survival, Bryn offered. Still not comforting. Thora silenced them with a look, turned back to Declan. For a moment, Warrior Mask slipped, showed something underneath, something that might have been worry or hope, or the complicated tangle of both. Don't try to be orc, she said quietly. Don't try to be warrior. Be exactly what you were 5 years ago. The man who helped someone dying. That's who I claimed. That's who they need to see. She reached out, took his hand, pressed something into his palm. When she released, he looked down. The cloth, blood-stained, 5 years old. Keep this, Thora said. Proof of my claim. When the clan comes, show them this. They'll understand. You carried this for 5 years, Declan said. Seems like you should keep it. I carried it until I found you. Thora's voice was firm. Now it's yours. Our shared history. Our bridge. She's still being back formal again. Warband leader. 3 weeks, Declan Graves. Then your real trial begins. They left, 4 warriors marching into the dawn. Thora didn't look back. Didn't need to. She'd looked back for 5 years. Now there was only forward. As they crested the ridge, Vera moved beside her. That was either the smartest thing you've ever done or the stupidest. Can it be both? Thora asked. Usually is, Vera admitted. Your father's going to have opinions. My father always has opinions. This time they'll be loud opinions. Thora smiled, grim, determined. Then I'll need to be louder. Behind them, in a small cabin with 3 chickens named after founding fathers and furniture held together by hope, Declan Graves stood holding a blood-stained cloth and contemplating the moment his quiet life ended and something vast and terrifying began. The storm had passed, the sun was rising, and somewhere in the distance, gears were turning, clans were waking, futures were shifting. A life debt had been claimed, a bridge had been proposed. A war-torn world had been given one small, impossible chance at something different. One blood-stained cloth at a time. One storm at a time. One yes at a time. Sometimes peace requires warriors willing to fight for it. And sometimes it requires farmers brave enough to say yes when yes makes no sense at all. The story had begun. The real test would come. But in that moment, walking through dawn light with her sisters beside her, and a claim binding her to a future she couldn't predict, Thora Steelheart felt something she hadn't felt in 5 years. Hope. The Steelheart clan occupied the northern ridges of the Cascade Range like a fortress carved from stone and will. 200 warriors, their families, their histories, all compressed into a settlement that had stood for 3 generations. Long enough to have roots, not long enough to forget that roots could be torn up by war. Thora stood at the edge of camp and looked at what she was about to risk. Everything. "You're certain," Vera said beside her. "Not a question, a test." "I'm certain. Your father won't make this easy." "If it was easy, it wouldn't be worth doing." Vera studied her for a long moment. 38 years of war and survival had taught the older warrior to read people the way scouts read terrain. What she saw in Thora must have satisfied her because she nodded once. "Then let's go start a fight," Vera said. The War Council met in the Great Hall. 50 years of smoke had darkened the timbers. 100 arguments had left their marks on the scarred table where clan leaders had made decisions that sent warriors to glory or graves. War Chief Gorak Steelheart sat at the head of that table like a mountain sitting on the horizon. Inevitable, immovable. 58 years old with a body still hard as iron and a mind harder still. His beard was gray now, braided with honor cords. Each cord represented a battle, a victory, a moment when he'd led his people through hell and brought them out the other side. Beside him sat the other council members. Veterans all, warriors who'd earned their seats through blood and wisdom and the kind of courage that doesn't fade with age. And at the far end of the table, leaning against the wall with arms crossed and a sneer barely concealed, stood Throg Bonecrusher, 32 years old, 6'4" of muscle and ambition, a warrior who'd won 15 single combats and never let anyone forget it. He wore his victories like armor, displayed them in every gesture, every word, every challenge, implicit in the way he looked at people he considered weak. He'd wanted Thora, made that clear for 2 years, proposed formal courtship, offered bride price, demonstrated his worth in combat after combat, each victory a message, "I'm strong enough for you." She'd turned him down, politely at first, then firmly, then with the kind of bluntness that should have ended the matter. It hadn't. Now he stood there watching her with eyes that calculated angles and opportunities like a predator measuring prey. This was going to be complicated. "Report," Gorak said, voice like gravel shifting. The voice of a man who'd given orders in the chaos of battle and expected them followed without question. "Reconnaissance patrol 3 days northern sector," Thora began. "Standard format. Facts first. Storm forced us to seek emergency shelter. Human farmstead quarter-mile south of Ridgeline. Single occupant. Made contact, no hostilities. You revealed yourselves to a human," one of the council members, Old Crag Ironhand, frowned. "Protocol says maintain distance." "Storm says don't die," Thora countered. "We chose living." A few chuckles around the table. The older warriors remembered when pragmatism mattered more than protocol. "Continue," Gorak said. This was it. The moment that would change everything or destroy her standing in the clan. "The human was Declan Graves," Thora said. "Let the name settle. 5 years ago during the Thornwood Valley skirmish, I was wounded, left behind during retreat. This human found me, treated my wounds, saved my life." Silence. The kind that comes before storms. "You're certain?" Gorak's voice hadn't changed, but something in his eyes had sharpened. "I kept his shirt," Thora said simply, "the one he tore to bandage me. Carried it 5 years. When I saw his face in that cabin, I knew." "A life debt," Vera said from beside him, speaking as witness. "Carried 5 years unpaid." "Life debts can be paid many ways," Gorak said carefully. "Gold, service, honor gift." "Yeah," Thora agreed, "they can be." She took a breath, committed. "I chose claim." The silence broke, not gradually, all at once, like ice cracking on a frozen lake. Throg pushed off from the wall. "You what?" "I claimed him," Thora repeated, voice steady. "Witnessed by Vera Blackstone, Bryn Wildmane, and Nick Starkmath. Formal claim, life debt to binding oath." "You claimed a human," Throg said, each word sharp as a blade. "A weak, poor, worthless human farmer." "I claimed the man who saved my life when I was his enemy," Thora corrected. "That's not weakness. That's strength I want in my bloodline." Throg's face darkened. "Bloodline? You're talking about breeding with—" "I'm talking about alliance," Thora cut him off, cold, clear. about showing both our peoples that peace is possible, about being more than warriors who die in pointless border skirmishes. Pointless, Throg's voice rose. You dishonor every warrior who fell defending our lands. I honor them by trying to make sure no more fall, Thora shot back. How many more have to die, Throg? How many more until you're satisfied? Until our enemies are defeated? Our enemies are humans. There are millions of them. We number thousands. The math doesn't work. It never worked. Gorak's fist hit the table. Once. The sound cut through argument like an axe through rope. Enough, the war chief said. Looked at Thora. You made this claim. Witnessed. Formal. Yes. You understand what you're asking. If I approve this, you bring a human into our clan. Make him family. Make his people potentially our people. Change everything we've known. I understand. And if he fails the trials, if he proves unworthy, then I'm disgraced. My judgment is questioned. My standing falls. Thora met her father's eyes. I accept that risk. Gorak studied her, father and war chief warring in those old eyes. The man who'd raised her versus the leader who had to think of 200 lives depending on his decisions. Why, he asked finally, why this human? Why this risk? Thora had prepared for this question. Had 3 weeks of thinking through tactical arguments, political necessities, strategic advantages. She threw them all away, told truth instead. Because for 15 years we've been at war. And what have we won? Territory that shifts with every season. Pride that costs blood, honor that doesn't feed families. She paused. And because when I was dying in that ditch, he didn't see orc or human. He saw someone who needed help. That's the world I want to live in. Sentiment, Throg spat. Weakness. Wisdom, Varys said quietly. There's a difference, Wishamu. Gorak leaned back. The chair creaked under his weight. Around the table the council watched, waiting for the war chief's judgment. The human will be tested, Gorak said finally. 4 trials, combat, wisdom, endurance, sacrifice. He passes all 4, the claim stands. He fails anyone, the claim is void. And Thora's disgrace is public, Throg added, almost eager. And my daughter faces consequences, Gorak agreed. Looked at Thora. You accept these terms? I accept. Then send word to your human. 3 weeks. Tell him to prepare. Gorak's expression was unreadable. Tell him the trials will be harder than anything he's faced. And tell him, a pause. Tell him not to embarrass my daughter. 200 miles south in a town called Cascade Falls, Commander Garrett Blackwood sat in his office and read the same report 3 times. Each reading made his jaw tighter. 52 years old, military veteran of the border wars. Lost his son Thomas in a post-war skirmish 8 years ago, 2 years after the official wars ended. But the violence had never really stopped. Thomas had been 23, young, brave, stupid in the way young men are stupid charging into battle, like glory was something you could hold in your hands. An orc blade had taught Thomas differently, had taught Garrett that glory was cold comfort when you're burying your only child. The border wars had officially ended a decade ago, but the skirmishes continued, the hatred continued, the cycle continued, and Garrett had spent the last 8 years making sure it would never truly end. Because if it ended, if peace became real, then Thomas's death would be just random. Meaningless. Waste. He couldn't allow that. The report was from one of his scouts. Human militia maintained a network along the border. Watching, waiting, preparing for the day when the uneasy truce finally broke and real war began. The report said an orc warrior had claimed a human. Formal claim. Life debt. The human was Declan Graves, a farmer, nobody important. Except he was about to become very important. Because if this claim stood, if the Steelheart clan formally accepted a human into their ranks, it created precedent. Example. Hope. And hope was the enemy of everything Garrett had built. He had spent 8 years turning grief into purpose, loss into mission, his son's death into a crusade that gave meaning to the meaningless. The border conflict. Militia wasn't large, maybe 300 men across 5 counties, but they were organized, armed, ready for war, A war that justified Thomas's death. That made the sacrifice mean something. That proved orcs were the enemy and always would be. This claim threatened everything. Garrett stood, walked to the window, looked out at Cascade Falls, small town, logging mostly. Good people who'd lost sons and daughters and siblings to border violence. People who understood that orcs were the problem. People who'd follow him when the time came. Sir, his second-in-command, Marcus Webb, stood in the doorway, 40 years old, competent, loyal, a man who understood chain of command. That report, Garrett said, confirm it. Already did. Multiple sources. The orc warrior's name is Thora Steelheart, daughter of their war chief. She's bringing her whole clan to test this human. 3 weeks. Where Graves's farm, quarter-mile south of Ridge Marker 7. Garrett knew the location, had scouted it personally 2 years ago when they were mapping orc patrol routes. Isolated, defensible, perfect for what he was thinking. If this claim succeeds, Garrett said slowly, it changes everything, gives peace advocates ammunition, makes war look optional instead of inevitable. War is inevitable, Marcus said. They killed your son. They've killed hundreds of ours. Exactly, Garrett turned from the window, which is why this claim can't succeed. This human Declan Graves has to fail. Publicly, catastrophically. How I'm the trials, Garrett said. Orcs test everyone who joins their clans, combat usually, endurance, things that can go wrong. He smiled, cold, things that can be helped to go wrong. Marcus understood. Sabotage. Call it ensuring the natural order. Garrett moved to his desk, pulled out maps. Here, Ridge Marker 7, Graves's farm. When the clan gathers, we watch, we wait. And when the trials begin, we make sure at least one of them ends badly. Kill the humans, sure, better. Garrett's finger traced a path on the map. Make it look like an accident. Make it look like the orcs did it. Turn this symbol of peace into evidence of their savagery. He looked up. Thomas died for a reason. This war has purpose. I won't let some bleeding heart farmer in an orc with guilt take that away. Marcus nodded. I'll assemble a team. Best shooters, quiet operators. 3 weeks, Garrett said. Plenty of time to prepare. 3 weeks felt like 3 days. Declan spent the time trying to prepare for something he couldn't possibly prepare for. He trained, pushed his body through exercises he hadn't done since military service. Combat drills, endurance runs, fighting against exhaustion, and the knowledge that he was 32 and hadn't been a soldier for years. The chickens watched his efforts with what he swore was judgment. I'm doing my best, he told them. On day 12, collapsed on his porch after a particularly brutal run. Washington clucked. It sounded skeptical. The blood-stained cloth sat on his mantle. Reminder, promise, threat. Some combination of all three. On day 17, Bryn Wildmane showed up at his door. Sister Thora sent me, the young orc warrior said without preamble. Says you need training. Says humans fight wrong. Well, thanks for the vote of confidence. Confidence is earned. Bryn grinned, showed teeth. Let's see what you've got. What Declan had, it turned out, was poor fundamentals, weak footwork, and a tendency to telegraph his punches like he was sending advance notice by mail. You're thinking too much, Bryn said after knocking him down for the 5th time. Combat isn't philosophy, it's physics. Physics says I should stay down. Physics says momentum matters, balance matters, knowing when to stand and when to duck matters. She hauled him up. Again. They trained for 3 days. Bryn was brutal, efficient, and occasionally encouraging in the way drill sergeants are encouraging, which is to say not much. But Declan learned, not enough to win. He'd never be strong enough to beat an orc in straight combat, but enough to survive, enough to show he wouldn't quit. The combat trial, Bryn said on the 3rd day, you're going to lose. Great pep talk, but lose well. Show heart. Show you're not afraid to bleed. She paused. Also, Throg Bonecrusher volunteered to be your opponent. That sounds ominous. He wanted Sister Thora. She chose you. He's going to make you hurt. Still ominous. Don't die, Bryn said. That's the only rule that matters. On day 21 they came, 200 orcs marching through the valley like history itself approaching. Drums beating, banners flying, warriors in formation that spoke of discipline, training centuries of military tradition. At the head of the column rode War Chief Gorak Steelheart. Declan stood in front of his cabin and watched an army arrive to judge him. His hands shook slightly. He steadied them through force of will. Soldiers didn't shake, medics didn't shake. Men who'd agreed to be bridges between peoples definitely shouldn't shake. But his hands remembered fear anyway. Gorak dismounted, approached, each step measured, each movement carrying the weight of command. Up close, the war chief was terrifying. Not because of size, though he was massive, Imam. Not because of scars, though he had plenty. Because of presence. The kind of presence that comes from leading people through hell and having them follow you willingly. "You're the human," Gorak said, voice like grinding stone. "I'm Declan Graves." "I know who you are." Gorak looked him up and down, taking measure. "I see a poor farmer with nothing, weak, unprepared, unworthy." Declan could have argued, could have defended himself. Instead, he met the war chief's eyes and told truth. "That's accurate assessment. I am all those things." Gorak's eyebrow raised. "You agree, well, why lie? You have eyes, you can see what I am." Declan paused. "But I'm also the man your daughter chose. If your daughter makes poor tactical decisions, war chief, that's on you for raising her." Silence. Absolute. The kind where everyone holds their breath, waiting to see if someone's about to die. Then Gorak laughed. Deep. Genuine. "Smart mouth on you. Let's see if you can back it up." He turned to the assembled clan. "This human Declan Graves has been claimed by my daughter Thora Steelheart. Life debt witnessed. Formal claim accepted. He will now face 4 trials: combat, wisdom, endurance, sacrifice." Gorak's voice carried across the valley. "He passes all 4, he joins our clan and becomes family, becomes bridge between our peoples." He paused, let weight settle. "He fails any one trial, the claim is void, and my daughter faces consequences of poor judgment." Thora stood to the side, watching, her expression carefully neutral. But Declan saw tension in her shoulders, stakes written in her posture. "First trial," Gorak announced. "Combat." Throg Bonecrusher stepped forward. 6'4" of muscle and barely contained violence. He smiled at Declan. Predator's smile. "Formal challenge," Throg said. "You and me. First blood surrender or unconsciousness." "Those are generous rules," Declan said. "I'm feeling generous." Throg's smile widened. "Today." The circle formed, warriors creating an arena with their bodies. Traditional. Ancient. The kind of space where honor was tested and weakness revealed. Declan stepped into the circle. His training with Bryn felt inadequate. His preparation felt like building a sandcastle before a tidal wave. But he stepped in anyway. Throg moved like liquid violence, fast for his size, precise. Every motion trained into muscle memory through thousands of hours of practice. His first strike came high. Declan ducked, felt wind of the blow pass overhead. Second strike low. Declan sidestepped. Almost. Fist clipped his ribs. Felt like being hit with stone. Third strike, center mass. No dodging this one. Took it full. Went down. The clan watched. Silent. Judging. Declan stood up. Throg's expression showed surprise. Then annoyance. "Stay down, human." "Not how this works," Declan said. They fought. If it could be called fighting. Declan was overmatched in every way that mattered. Strength, speed, training, experience. Throg was a warrior at peak. Declan was a farmer who'd been a medic once. But Declan had one advantage. One thing Bryn had drilled into him over 3 days. He knew how to take damage. Medics learn it backward. How to fix broken bodies teaches you how bodies break, where the vulnerable points are, how to protect them, how to fall so nothing vital breaks, how to turn a killing blow into something survivable. Throg hit him. Again. Again. Blood from a split lip. Blood from a broken nose. Blood where a strike had open skin above his eye. And Declan kept standing up. "Stay down." Throg's composure cracking. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. The human was supposed to fold. Supposed to quit. Supposed to prove weakness. No, Declan said through blood. Thora watched from the circle's edge, her knuckles white where she gripped her sword hilt. Vera beside her had placed a restraining hand on her shoulder. You can't help him, Vera whispered. This is his test. He's being destroyed. He's surviving. Watch. Throg came in for finishing blow. Full power. Meant to end this. Declan didn't dodge, didn't block. He stepped inside the strike. Too close for full force. Took the blow on the shoulder instead of the head. Used Throg's momentum. Grabbed. Twisted. Not strength. Leverage. Physics like Bryn said. For half a second, Throg was off balance. Declan headbutted him. Not elegant, not trained, just desperation and blood and the memory of close quarters combat from war. Throg staggered back, nose bleeding, shocked. The clan erupted, not cheers, something else. Acknowledgement. The human had landed a blow. Poor blow, weak blow, but a blow nonetheless. Enough, Gorak's voice cut through. The human has proven he won't quit. That's all this trial requires. Throg looked ready to argue, looked at the blood on his face, at Declan swaying but standing, at the clan watching. He nodded once, sharp, turned and left the circle. Declan collapsed. Not dramatically, just folded gravity finally winning. Thora was there immediately, hands checking injuries. You absolute fool. Did I pass? You survived. Close enough. Her hands were gentle despite her words. You're lucky nothing's broken. Everything feels broken. That's just pain. Pain goes away. Vera handed down water. Declan drank, tasted blood. Everything hurt in that distant way that meant adrenaline was wearing off and reality was incoming. First trial done, Ishu, Vera said. 3 more. Can I die now? After the other 3, Thora said, almost smiled. Don't die before you're useful. The second trial came that evening. Wisdom. The clan gathered in firelight. Gorak sat on a makeshift throne, really just a chair, but his presence made it more. Council members flanked him. Declan stood in the center, still bleeding from the combat trial, ribs wrapped, face swollen, but standing. Wisdom is knowing truth, Gorak began. Knowing when to fight and when to talk. When to hold ground and when to retreat. He leaned forward. Tell me, human. War comes. My people against yours. Which side do you take? Standard question. The answer was supposed to be diplomatic. Careful. Something about serving peace, trying to stop conflict, finding middle ground. Declan was too tired and hurt for diplomacy. Neither, he said, flat, direct. I'd fight to stop the war. Pretty words, but when steel meets steel, you choose a side. No. Declan met the war chief's eyes. I know war. Served 3 years as combat medic. Got out 5 years ago. Saw enough blood to fill rivers. Saw enough death to populate graveyards. He paused, and I learned something. War serves the people who profit from it, not the people who die in it. So Throg spoke up from the side. Coward's philosophy. Survivor's experience, Declan corrected. You know what killed most people in the border wars, not combat. Disease, infection, starvation. The war destroyed infrastructure, poisoned wells, burned crops. Both sides suffered. Both sides lost. He turned to face the whole clan. You ask what side I'd choose. I choose the side that says this is stupid. That says whatever we're fighting over isn't worth the cost we're paying. Bold words for someone who lost his family to our kind, Gorak said quietly. The clan went silent. How did he know Declan hadn't mentioned Thornwood to anyone except Thora? Yes, Declan said. I'd lost my family. Thornwood massacre. 13 years ago, I was 19, home from school. They died while I was there. Our farm burned, my parents, my sister, all gone. He took a breath. Let pain show. No point hiding it. Official report said orc raid. Brutality typical of your people. Use that massacre to fuel recruitment for years. Proof that orcs were savages who couldn't be trusted. And yet you saved one of us, Gorak said. And yet I saved Thora, Declan agreed. Because 5 years ago I looked at her dying in that ditch and I didn't see an orc. I saw someone who needed help. He paused. But lately I've been thinking about Thornwood, about that night. I was 19, terrified, in shock. But years later, after I became a medic, after I learned to read wounds and trauma patterns, I started remembering details that didn't fit. Details like what? Thora's voice. Focused. The killing was too precise, Declan said slowly, working through memory. My father was a community leader, spoke at town halls, advocated for peace negotiations. The raiders who came went straight for our house, bypassed neighbors, burned us specifically. That's not raid tactics. That's assassination. He looked at Gorak and the wounds I saw on my father's body. I was too young to understand then, but thinking back with medics' knowledge, they were execution wounds. Professional, not battle fury, calculated. He shook his head. I saw the weapons afterwards scattered around. They looked like orc blades, right style, but wrong weight distribution, wrong wear patterns. Later as medic, I handled real orc weapons. These were different, disguised human steel. The silence was absolute now, dangerous. You're saying Thornwood was false flag? Gorak's voice had gone very quiet, very dangerous. That humans framed us. I'm saying I was 19 and traumatized and no one listened when I tried to tell them something felt wrong, Declan said. I'm saying the official story gave recruiters exactly what they needed. An enemy to hate, a reason to fight, justification for endless war. That's conspiracy theory, someone said from the crowd. That's tactical thinking, Declan countered. Who benefits from Thornwood, not orcs? You got blamed, hunted, pushed back. Who benefits? People who need war to continue. People who profit from conflict. People who lose power if peace breaks out. Thora was already moving. She grabbed Vera Bryn Nix. We investigate, now. Thornwood records, patrol logs from that night. Everything. Thora, Gorak started. If he's right, we've been bleeding for a lie, Thora said, her voice hard as iron. If he's right, someone orchestrated a massacre and blamed us. I need to know. Gorak studied his daughter, then Declan, then made a decision. Investigate, he said, quietly, carefully, report to me directly. He turned to Declan. Your wisdom isn't pretty, but it's honest, and it makes me think. Trial passed. The next morning, Thora's investigation team left before dawn. Declan watched them go, feeling like he'd opened something that couldn't be closed. The third trial came 2 days later. Endurance trial, Gorak announced. You and Thora, into the mountains. 48 hours. Return with Cloud Peak herb from the High Valley. What's Cloud Peak herb? Declan asked. Rare plant, grows only above tree line. Medicinal properties. Gorak's expression was unreadable. Also a test. The journey requires teamwork, trust, partnership, things a claim should have. Thora checked her gear. We leave at noon. They climbed in silence for the first hour. Thora setting pace, Declan keeping up through stubbornness and residual military fitness. His ribs still hurt from the combat trial. Every breath was a reminder of Throg's fists, but he kept moving. At the first rest stop, Thora spoke. You think someone orchestrated Thornwood? Who? I don't know. I was 19. All I remember is chaos and fire and loss. But you remember the wrong details. The weapons, the tactics. Medics training. You learn to observe. Wounds tell stories. Weapons leave signatures. Declan drank from his canteen. The wounds on my father were precise, professional. Not battle fury, execution. Thora absorbed this. My team is checking patrol logs. If we weren't there, records will show it. Records can be altered. Not ours. We carve patrol routes in stone, literally. Tradition dating back centuries, hard to fake stone. They climbed higher, the air thinned, mountains rose around them, ancient and indifferent. At night they made camp on a narrow ledge. Fire kept small to avoid attention. Why did you really claim me? Declan asked in the darkness. Thora was quiet for a long moment. Life debt, strategy, alliance, all true. But for 5 years I carried your cloth over my heart. Her voice was softer than he'd ever heard it. Told myself it was duty, honor, obligation. But maybe, she paused, Maybe I wanted excuse to find you again. See if the man who saved me was real or just trauma making saints out of strangers. And, still deciding, she looked at him across the fire. You're braver than you should be. Stood up to Throg. Spoke truth to my father. Following me into mountains despite being wounded. Pause. But you're also human. This claim might destroy us both. Might save us both too. Optimist. Medic. We're trained to hope. Thora smiled. Small. Real. Then her expression shifted. Down. She moved. Fast. Pulled at Declan behind Boulder just as the first gunshot cracked the night. Rock exploded where they'd been sitting. Modern rifle. High-powered. Professional. Ambush, Thora hissed. This isn't trial. More shots, muzzle flashes from 3 positions. Coordinated. Trained. Human militia. Declan recognized the patterns. They're trying to kill us. Thora's blade was out. They're trying to kill you. Make it look like accident. Destroy the claim. Who'd be that opposed to peace? People who profit from war. Thora's eyes were hard. Stay down. I'm going hunting. She moved like shadow and violence. Combat isn't ceremony for orcs. It's physics and biology in terrible efficiency. The first shooter never saw her coming. Just shadow, then blade, then silence. The second got a shot off. Bullet caught Thora's shoulder, near where her old scar was. She grunted, kept moving, reached him in 3 seconds. He went down hard. The third realized what was happening. Ran. Got 10 yards before Thora's thrown knife took him in the leg. He fell, screamed, fell silent when she reached him. Declan emerged from cover, moved to Thora, medic mode engaging despite fear and adrenaline. You're hit. It's shallow. It's bleeding. Sit down. She sat. Let him work. The bullet had carved a furrow through muscle, painful but not critical. Declan packed it with cloth torn from his shirt. Deja vu to 5 years ago, different positions, same care. Third time you've saved me, Thora said quietly. You saved me tonight. Still counts. She looked at the bodies. Someone sent them. Trained shooters, good equipment. This was planned. One shooter was still alive, leg wound, bleeding but survivable. Declan went to him. The man was young, maybe 25, scared. Who sent you? Declan asked. Won't tell you nothing. You're bleeding out. I'm a medic. I can help, or I can let physics take its course. Declan's voice was flat. War had taught him how to be cold when necessary. Who sent you? The man looked at Thora, at her blade still dark with blood. Decided truth was better than silence. Commander Blackwood, he gasped. Said you had to fail. Said the claim was threat to everybody. Said, he coughed. Said the cause required it. What cause? Thora demanded. War. The border conflict militia. We're ready, just waiting for excuse. Blood flecked his lips. Your peace threatens that. Can't have peace. Peace means we were wrong. Declan looked at Thora. Blackwood. I know that name. He runs militia operations in Cascade Falls. Why target us? Because peace makes war look optional, Declan said slowly. Understanding crystallizing. If we succeed, if this claim stands, it proves humans and orcs can cooperate. That maybe all the death was unnecessary. He's invested in war, Thora finished. Invested in us being enemies. She stood, winced as her shoulder protested. We go back. Now. This changes everything. They carried the wounded shooter, moved fast through darkness. Thora fired emergency flare. Green fire arcing up into night. Signal for help. Gorak and warriors met them at dawn. Saw blood, saw bodies, saw fury in Thora's eyes. The trial was sabotaged, Thora reported. Human militia. Tried to kill us. She pushed forward the wounded shooter. He confessed. Commander Garrett Blackwood sent them. Blackwood, Gorak's expression darkened. I know him. Lost son in the wars. Blamed us. Swore vengeance. He's getting it, Thora said. Through continued conflict. And our claim threatens that. Declan stepped forward. Permission to speak, War Chief. Gorak nodded. If Blackwood sent shooters to stop this claim, what else has he done? Declan asked. What else would he do to keep war going? He paused, let implications sink. Thornwood, 13 years ago. Massacre blamed on orcs. Who benefits? The silence stretched. Terrible. Heavy with implications. Vrahara, Gorak's voice was granite. Your investigation, what did you find? Vera stepped forward. She'd returned that morning. Her face was grim. We found the patrol logs, carved stone. That night, our nearest patrol was 50 miles north. We weren't anywhere near Thornwood. Someone framed us, Gorak said slowly. Someone murdered humans and made it look like our work, Vera agreed. Created atrocity, built hatred, ensured war would continue. Blackwood, Thora said. He had motive, means, opportunity. He's military. He knows tactics. He could organize false flag. That's speculation, one of the council members said. That's tactical analysis, Thora countered. And it's testable. We dig into Blackwood's history, his finances, his militia's formation, find the proof. Gorak looked at Declan, at Thora, at the wounded shooter who'd confirmed conspiracy. The endurance trial, he said finally. You both survived, worked together, protected each other against the threat. That's partnership. He nodded. Trial passed. He turned to his council. We have one more trial. Sacrifice. But first we have bigger problem. His voice carried across the assembled clan. Someone has been making us enemies, making humans and orcs kill each other, building war on foundation of lie. He looked at Declan. Your claim isn't just about peace between you and my daughter. It's about revealing truth, about ending cycles of violence built on manipulation. Yes, Declan said simply. Then we make your final trial count, Gorak decided. Tomorrow we finish this. And then, his smile was hard, cold. Then we have conversation with Commander Blackwood about what he's done and what he's going to pay. That night, Thora found Declan sitting outside his cabin, looking at stars. His ribs hurt, his face hurt, everything hurt. She sat beside him, shoulder bandaged, exhausted, but present. One more trial, she said. Sacrifice, Declan replied. What do you think they'll ask? Something that tests commitment, loyalty, willingness to give up what matters. I don't have much to give up. You have yourself, Thora said quietly. That might be what they ask for. They sat in silence. Above them, stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, indifferent to human or orc concerns, indifferent to war or peace or anything except gravity and time. Thank you, Declan said finally. For what? For claiming me, for this K, for making me matter again. Thora looked at him. You mattered before, you just didn't know it. How do you figure you saved a life 5 years ago, set events in motion that might end a war? That's not small, that's everything. She stood, offered hand. Come on, tomorrow's final trial. You should rest. He took her hand, let her pull him up. For a moment they stood close, her hand warm in his. Connection, partnership, something building that neither had named yet. One more trial, she said again. Then we change the world, or die trying. Those are dramatic options. Welcome to clan life, Thora said, almost smiled. Everything's dramatic. She left him there under stars. Tomorrow would bring the final test, and after that reckoning with Garrett Blackwood and whatever truth lay buried under 13 years of hatred. But tonight Declan Graves stood outside his cabin and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose, direction, the sense that his life was part of something larger than 3 chickens and lonely nights. The storm had brought Thora to his door. The trials had forged them together, and tomorrow would decide if that forge produced weapon for peace or shattered both of them trying. One more trial, then everything changed. The stars wheeled overhead. Time moved forward, and in the mountains an old warrior sharpened his blade and planned reckoning with a man who'd built empire on lies and blood. The story was reaching its crisis point. The third act approached, and nothing would ever be the same. Dawn came cold and clear, the kind of morning that felt like the world holding its breath before something significant. The entire Steelheart clan gathered in the natural amphitheater below Declan's cabin, 200 orcs arranged in ceremonial formation. Witnesses to the final trial, judges of whether a human farmer could truly join their ranks. War Chief Gorak Steelheart stood at the center, 58 years of leadership carved into his posture. Beside him, the council members, veterans all. Warriors who'd earned the right to judge worthiness. Thora stood to one side, formally separate. This wasn't her trial. She'd made her claim. Now Declan had to prove it valid. But her hand rested on her sword hilt. Ready, because something felt wrong. The air carried tension beyond ceremony, a charge like electricity before lightning. Declan stepped into the circle. 3 trials passed. Combat where he'd survived, wisdom where he'd spoken truth, endurance where they'd fought off assassins together. 1 trial remained. Sacrifice, Gorak announced. His voice carried across the assembled clan. The final test. The hardest test. Because it asks not what you can do, but what you're willing to lose. He looked at Declan. To join our clan, to bond with my daughter, you must leave your human life behind. Your land, your home, your identity. You will live with us, follow our ways, become orc in all but blood. The demand hung in the air, absolute, uncompromising. Declan looked at his cabin, the structure he'd built with his own hands, the land he'd worked for 5 years, the last connection to his family, to the life before war, took everything. Gorak continued, this isn't symbolic. If you accept, you pack nothing, take nothing, leave it all. Your past ends. Your future begins with us. Total sacrifice. Everything he owned. Everything he was. All of it surrendered for a claim he barely understood 3 weeks ago. Declan opened his mouth to respond. Thora spoke first. No. Every head turned. Gorak's eyebrows rose. Throg Bonecrusher, standing with the council, smiled like he'd been waiting for this. Thora's failure? Public. Witnessed. Daughter, Gorak said carefully, you interrupt the trial. I interrupt injustice, Thora said. Stepped forward, into the circle, breaking protocol, but doing it with such authority that no one moved to stop her. You ask him to give up everything, to erase who he is, to become something else. Oh, that's what joining a clan means, Gorak said. That's what conquest means, Thora countered. Her voice rang clear. Certain. You're not asking for sacrifice, you're demanding surrender, and I won't ask that of him. You claimed him, Throg said from the side, almost gleeful. Now you reject your own claim, admit he's not worthy. He's absolutely worthy, Thora said. Turn to face the clan. He's worthy because he's exactly who he is, human, farmer, medic who saved an enemy, man who spoke truth about Thornwood when silence would have been easier. She looked at Declan. I claimed him as he is, not as what he might become if we break him down and rebuild him in our image. That's not alliance, that's domination. Back to Gorak. You taught me strategy, Father. Taught me that strong alliances preserve what each side brings, that forcing conformity creates resentment, not loyalty. You're saying he keeps his cabin, his land, his human identity. Gorak's tone was unreadable. I'm saying we build something new, Thora said. Not him joining us, not me joining him. Both of us creating bridge, meeting in middle. That's what real partnership looks like. Silence. The clan watched. This wasn't standard trial procedure. This was their war chief's daughter challenging tradition in front of everyone. Gorak looked at Declan. You're very quiet, human. My daughter fights your trial for you. She's not fighting for me, Declan said. Found his voice. Stepped forward to stand beside Thora. She's fighting for what's right, and she's right. He addressed the council. I'd give up my cabin if that's what it took. I'd walk away from everything. But would that prove commitment, or would it prove I can be broken? It would prove you value the claim above all else, one council member said. It would prove I'm desperate, Declan corrected. Desperate people make poor allies. They resent what they've lost. They blame those who took it. He paused. But partners who choose to join, who keep their identity while building something new, they're invested. They're present. They want it to work. He looked at Gorak. Your daughter claimed me because I showed mercy when I could have walked away. Because I value life over sides. If you force me to choose sides now, to abandon everything human about me, you prove that orcs value dominance over peace. Bold words, Throg said. Coward's reasoning. Warrior's wisdom, Vera Blackstone spoke up. The old veteran stepped forward. I've fought 40 years of border wars, seen enough death to fill valleys, and I've learned one thing: enemies you conquer may obey, partners you respect will follow. She looked at Gorak. The human speaks truth. Force him to surrender everything, we prove we're conquerors. Allow him to bridge both worlds, we prove we're better than our reputation. Gorak studied his daughter, studied Declan, studied the assembled clan, watching to see how their war chief would respond to challenge to tradition. Finally, he spoke. The trial of sacrifice isn't about what you lose. It's about what you're willing to risk, about whether you value the claim above comfort. He looked at Thora. My daughter just risked her standing by interrupting this trial, by challenging tradition, by defending you when protocol demanded silence. Back to Declan. You just spoke against our ways to our faces, risked us rejecting the claim entirely, called us conquerors if we don't change. He paused, let weight settle. Both of you risked everything for principle, for partnership, for the belief that we can be better than we've been. His expression shifted. Slight smile. That was the real test. Not whether you'd give up your cabin, whether you'd stand for what matters when standing was dangerous. He raised his voice. Final trial passed, both of them. Because they understand what some of you have forgotten: strength without wisdom is just violence. Sacrifice without choice is just slavery. Gorak turned to Throg. You wanted to see him broken, to see Thora fail. Instead, you've seen what real leadership looks like. Learn from it. Back to the clan. Tonight we hold the claiming ceremony. Declan Graves joins Steelheart clan, not as conquered, as chosen, as partner. The clan erupted, not all approval, some anger, some celebration. Change never comes easy, but it comes anyway. Thora's eyes met Declan's. Relief, vindication, and something else. Something that might have been pride, or might have been the beginning of understanding that tactics had somewhere become truth. Thank you, Declan said quietly. Thank you for being worth defending, Thora replied. 3 miles away on a ridge overlooking the valley, Commander Garrett Blackwood lowered his binoculars and swore. 52 years old, 25 years military service. 8 years building the border conflict militia. 8 years preparing for war that would give his son's death meaning. And now, watching through magnified lenses, he saw that war slipping away. The human had passed, all 4 trials. Tonight, the claiming ceremony would make it official. One human joined to an orc clan, symbol of peace. Proof that cooperation was possible. Unacceptable. Marcus Webb stood beside him, 40 years old, loyal, competent, waiting for orders. The ceremony's tonight, Garrett said. At dusk, traditional format, I assume. Our scout confirms. Central gathering space. Formal binding witnessed by entire clan. Guards perimeter watch, but ceremonial, not expecting attack. They're celebrating, not defending. Garrett nodded, pieces clicking into place. Strategy forming from desperation and conviction, and 8 years of grief hardened into purpose. We hit them during the ceremony, he said. Hard, fast, overwhelming force. All of us, Marcus asked. That's escalation, that's open warfare. That's necessary. Garrett's jaw set. That farmer and the orc, they're about to destroy everything. One ceremony that proves peace is possible, that we've been wrong, that all the death was unnecessary. He shook his head. We can't allow it. What's the objective? Kill them both. Make it look like orc betrayal, like they lured him in, attacked during ceremony, slaughtered him in front of witnesses. Garrett's eyes were cold. Humans will be outraged. Orcs will be blamed. War becomes inevitable instead of optional. Marcus was quiet for a moment. That's murder. Massacre. That's tactical necessity, Garrett corrected. Thornwood worked, gave us 8 years of recruitment, funding support. One more massacre, bigger this time, witnessed by survivors who'll tell the story we need. He looked at Marcus. We'll have our war, finally, properly. And Thomas's death will have meant something, Garrett said quietly. We'll have purpose. Won't just be random violence. We'll be first casualty in war that needed fighting. He turned from the valley. Gather everyone. Every fighter we have. Full weapons. We move at dusk. Marcus hesitated. Sir, this is point of no return. Once we do this, we're already past that point, Garrett said. The moment that human said yes to the claim, he declared war on everything we've built, on the truth we've established, on the order that keeps humans safe. He gripped Marcus's shoulder. My son died, fighting orcs. Hundreds of sons and daughters died. We owe them truth about what they died for. We owe them meaning, and we give them that by proving orcs are enemy. Always were, always will be. Yes, sir, Marcus said, went to gather the troops. Garrett stood on the ridge and looked down at the valley where 200 orcs prepared for ceremony, where one human farmer thought he could build peace. 8 years. 8 years of careful work, of building militia, of positioning pieces, of maintaining tension that would eventually erupt into war, that gave everything purpose. He wouldn't let one bleeding heart and one guilty orc undo it all. Tonight during ceremony, he'd end this, decisively, permanently. And when the story spread, when humans heard about the massacre, when they learned that peace was illusion and orcs were treacherous, the war he'd been preparing for would finally begin. His son's death would mean something, and anyone who died after would die for cause, for purpose, for the great work of keeping humans safe from monsters, even if he had to become monster to do it. Dusk came in shades of gold and purple, the kind of sunset that felt like benediction from indifferent sky. The Steelheart clan arranged themselves in ancient patterns, ceremonial formation passed down through generations, warriors in outer rings, elders in middle rings, council at center, space at the very heart for the claiming itself. Fires burned in ceremonial braziers, drums beat slow rhythm, old rhythms, rhythms that had marked important moments for centuries, births, deaths, bindings. Thora stood at the center, wearing ceremonial armor, polished steel that caught firelight, her clan colors displayed. Her father's blessing shone in the honor cords woven into her braids. Across from her, Declan Graves. He'd cleaned up as best he could. Simple clothes, no armor, no pretense of being something he wasn't. Just human farmer who'd agreed to be bridge. Between them, War Chief Gorak Steelheart, officiating, blessing, binding. We gathered to witness claim, Gorak's voice carried across assembled warriors. Thora Steelheart has claimed Declan Graves. Life debt carried 5 years. Formal claim witnessed. Trials completed. Now comes binding. He looked at Thora. Daughter, state your claim, before clan, before ancestors, before all who witness. Thora took breath. This moment, everything building to this moment. I claim Declan Graves, she said, voice strong, clear. By life debt he didn't know he carried. By mercy shown when mercy was impossible. By partnership proven through trial. She pulled out items, laid them before him. I give you my life blade, protection of my steel. I give you my clan name, belonging with my people. I give you my oath, that I stand with you, shield you, fight beside you, today and always. She paused. I give you bridge between our peoples, proof that peace is possible. And I give you another pause, vulnerable moment. I give you trust, that tactics I claimed you for have become something true. Murmurs through clan, that last wasn't traditional, that was personal, real. Gorak turned to Declan. And you, what do you give? What does poor farmer with 3 chickens bring to warrior daughter of war chief? Declan reached into his pocket, pulled out carved wooden figure. Chicken, crude, simple, whittled over long winter nights when loneliness had been his only companion. He held it out to Thora. I give you this, not valuable, not impressive, but made with my hands from tree that grows on my land. Made during year I was most alone, made before I knew you'd find me again. He set it down, continued. I give you my land, small as it is, my home, modest as it is, my life, simple as it is. He pulled out the blood-stained cloth, the linen that had saved her life 5 years ago, that she'd carried until 3 weeks ago, that he'd kept since, their shared history made tangible. I give you this back, our beginning, proof that kindness matters, that mercy changes things, that one person helping another can ripple forward through years. He looked at her, met her eyes. And I give you my word that I'll stand in middle ground when both sides pull, that I'll be bridge even when bridge is hardest thing to be. That I chose this, not because you claim me, because you're right. Peace is possible, and someone has to prove it. Silence. Deep. Profound. Thora picked up the wooden chicken, cradled it carefully. It's perfect. It's a wooden chicken, Declan said. It's perfect, she repeated. Gorak pulled out ceremonial cord, red and black, clan colors. Join hands. They did. Thora's hands strong, calloused. Declan's hands steady despite everything. Gorak wrapped the cord around their wrists, binding them, literally and symbolically. By this cord you are bound, Gorak said, witnessed by clan, blessed by ancestors, joined in purpose and partnership. You are Pae. The first explosion cut him off. East perimeter. Fireball rising into dusk sky. Screams, combat sounds, gunfire. Thora's combat instincts engaged instantly. Ambush defensive positions, elders to center, warriors to perimeter. The clan moved, trained, disciplined. Celebrations forgotten. Warriors remembering they were warriors. More explosions. West perimeter. North. Coordinated attack. Professional. Planned. Figures emerging from tree line. Humans. Making. Military formation. Maybe 60 fighters. Full combat gear. Moving with precision of trained unit. Garrett Blackwood's voice boomed across valley. Amplified. That orc has lured you to slaughter. This is trap. Get out now while... Liar, Declan's voice, strong, carrying. You orchestrated this. You killed my family. You've been building war on lies. Garrett's response was gunfire. Concentrated burst where Declan stood. Thora moved, faster than thought. Shield up, taking rounds, protecting Declan. Her armor sparked where bullets hit. Modern rifles versus ancient steel. Steel held, barely. Vera north flank. Thora's commands cut through chaos. Bryn gets civilians clear. Nix count their forces. Give me numbers. She turned to Declan. Stay with my father, your target. They want you dead. They want us both dead. Then we don't die. She drew her blade. Defend the ceremony space. Don't let them reach center. The battle began in earnest. 60 militia against 200 clan warriors. Numbers favored orcs. But militia had modern weapons. Range advantage. Tactical positions on high ground. Blood on both sides. Orc warriors fell. Militia fighters fell. Violence solving nothing but creating more violence. Thora fought like the warrior she was, not wild, controlled, efficient, moving through enemies with blade work that was art and murder combined. Every strike purposeful. Every movement tactical. She identified priority. Garrett Blackwood, standing on ridge, commanding, orchestrating. End him. End this. Vera, you have command. Keep them contained. Thora started moving, upslope, toward Garrett. I'm going for their leader. She fought through militia lines, took wounds. Minor, painful, irrelevant. Target mattered. Not damage taken reaching it. Garrett saw her coming, smiled, cold. There she is, the orc who thinks she can change the world. I'm the orc who's going to end you, Thora said. Close now, blade ready. You're the orc who destroyed everything. Garrett drew his own blade, military issue. Well maintained, he knew how to use it. My son died fighting your kind. 8 years ago. Thomas Blackwood. 23 years old. Good kid, brave, stupid brave. I'm sorry for your loss, Thora said. Meant it, but that doesn't justify this. Justify, Garrett laughed, harsh. I'm not looking for justification. I'm looking for purpose. My son died, hundreds died, thousands. All that death needs to mean something. So you make more death, Thora circled, looking for opening. That's not honor. That's not purpose. That's just grief gone rotten. Call it what you want. Garrett attacked. Fast, skilled, former military showing training. But tonight I end your bridge, kill your symbol, prove orcs can't be trusted. They fought, blade against blade. Thora was better, younger, stronger, but Garrett was desperate, grief-driven, reckless in ways that made him dangerous. Behind them down in Valley, Declan saw what was happening, saw Thora fighting Garrett, saw militia closing in on her position, saw her isolated, vulnerable. He grabbed weapon from fallen militia fighter. Rifle. Loaded. He'd been medic. But before medic, he'd been soldier. Muscle memory didn't forget. Gorak grabbed his arm. You're not warrior. No, Declan agreed. But I'm partner. And partners don't let partners fight alone. He moved, up slope, toward Thora's position. Other warriors saw him go. Some followed. Bridgeworth defending. Thora pressed Garrett. Bladework superior. Pushing him back. You orchestrated Thornwood killed my family. Framed orcs admitted as much to your own people. Necessary sacrifice. Garrett's defense weakening. To show humans what you really are, monsters, savages, enemy. We're people. Thora's blade found opening. Cut across Garrett's sword arm, not deep. Disabling. Same as you. Same hopes, same fears, same capacity for good or evil. Garrett's blade dropped. He fell to knees, beaten, bleeding. His war ending. Militia saw their leader fall, saw their cause collapse. Some kept fighting. Many didn't. Surrender became option when your commander was down and enemy had high ground. Thora stood over Garrett, blade at his throat. You murdered innocents, blamed us, built empire on lies. Why, because death has to mean something, Garrett said quietly, voice breaking. My son has to have died for reason. Otherwise it's just random, meaningless, waste. His death was meaningless, Thora said. Not cruel, honest. Happened in war that shouldn't have been fought, over territory that didn't matter, for causes that were lies. She lowered blade slightly. But his memory doesn't have to be. You can choose. Right now. Order your militia to stand down. Testify about Thornwood, about false flag, about manipulation. Give truth back to people who've been dying for your lies. Why would I do that? Because your son deserves better than father who became monster. Thora's voice was hard, but not without compassion. Because you were soldier once. Honorable. This, she gestured at battlefield. This isn't honor. This is grief wearing soldier's uniform. Garrett looked at her, at his fallen militia, at the valley where ceremony had become battlefield, at evidence of what he'd done, what he'd become. Stand down, he said quietly, then louder. All militia, stand down, lower weapons, it's over. The fighting ceased, not instantly, gradually, confusion giving way to obedience. Commander's orders still mattered. Declan reached Thora's position, breathless, armed, ready. You okay? I'm good, she said, looked at him. You came. Partners, he said simply. Gorak arrived with main force, surveyed scene. Garrett Blackwood on his knees. Militia surrendering. His daughter standing victorious. War chief, Garrett said. I orchestrated Thornwood, hired mercenaries, gave them orc weapons, targeted peace advocates, made it look like your raid. His voice was hollow, empty. I've been building war for 8 years. False flag to real conflict. All of it manipulation. Why confess now, Gorak asked. Garrett looked at Thora, at Declan. Because they're right. Death is meaningless if we keep adding to it. My son's dead. Nothing changes that. But maybe, his voice broke, maybe I can stop more sons from dying. Gorak signaled warriors. Secure him. Secure all militia. They'll face judgment. Human courts first. They're human criminals, but clan will have say in sentence. He turned to Thora, to Declan. Your ceremony was interrupted, attacked, nearly destroyed. And you, he looked at his daughter with something that might have been pride. You commanded defense, defeated enemy, extracted confession, ended threat. We ended threat, Thora corrected, nodded to Declan. Both of us. Gorak smiled, small, rare. Both of you. He raised voice to clan. Warriors casualties, Vera reported. 7 wounded, 2 serious, none dead. Militia casualties. 12 wounded, 3 dead, rest surrendered. Gorak nodded. Acceptable numbers. As acceptable as battle casualties ever were. 10 wounded, theirs and ours. Secure prisoners. He looked at ceremony space. Fires still burning, cords still around Thora's and Declan's wrists from interrupted binding. And then he said, We finish the damn ceremony, because I will not let attackers determine when we honor our own. Garrett Blackwood was taken into custody that night. He would face trial in human courts for murder conspiracy for orchestrating the Thornwood massacre that had killed Declan's family and countless others. 13 years of lies unraveling. His militia disbanded, their weapons confiscated. His cause exposed as manipulation built on grief and blood. He'd spend his remaining years in prison, his son's memory forever tainted by what he'd become. Sometimes the cost of truth is paid by those who tried to bury it beneath mountains of bodies and rivers of blood. They reconvened as dusk deepened to night. Wounded treated, dead honored, prisoners secured. Battle ended but not forgotten. The clan gathered again, more solemn now. Blood on ground, smoke in air, price of peace literally paid. Thora and Declan stood at center, still bound by cord, never removed despite chaos. Symbol accidentally becoming more meaningful. They'd fought together, defended together, survived together, while literally tied together. Gorak raised his hands. Tonight we were attacked. Forces sought to destroy claim, sought to prove peace impossible. He paused. They failed, because two people stood together, one orc, one human, both refusing to let hate win. He looked at them. Thora Steelheart, Declan Graves, you fought beside each other, protected each other, led together. That's what binding means, not ceremony, not ritual, action, choice, commitment. He tightened the cord around their wrists. You're already bound. Battle proved it. This, he gestured at ceremony, this is just making official what's already true. To clan witness binding, Thora Steelheart and Declan Graves, joined by life debt, by trials, by blood, by battle, by choice freely made. He unwrapped cord, took Thora's hand, took Declan's hand, joined them. In our tradition, binding is partnership, equal, mutual, two becoming stronger together than apart. He stepped back. You are bound. Welcome to Steelheart Clan Declan Graves. You've earned it, defended it, bled for it. The clan cheered, not all enthusiastic, some still skeptical, but honest, real, change accepted even if not loved. Thora and Declan stood there, hands joined, surrounded by warriors who'd fought with them, who'd seen them lead, who'd witnessed bridge being built in fire and blood. So, Declan said quietly, we're married now. Bound, Thora corrected. Orc don't have marriage, we have partnership, witness, commitment. Sounds like marriage with different words. Marriage ends, partnership evolves. She squeezed his hand. You're stuck with me now. Could be worse, could be better too. I'm difficult. I've noticed, she smiled, real smile. Not warrior, not leader, just Thora. Thank you for coming after me, for standing with me, for being worth defending. Thank you for claiming me, Declan said, for seeing bridge instead of enemy, for changing everything. They kissed, not dramatic, not movie perfect, just two people who'd fought for right to be together. Claiming moment that was theirs. The clan cheered again, louder now, celebration earned, peace fought for, bridge built. 5 years later, Thornwood Bridge Settlement, named after the massacre that had once divided them. Now symbol of unity. Population 432. Mixed. Human and orc. Families who'd chosen peace over war. Who'd decided bridge was worth building. Not perfect. Still tensions. Still arguments about whose customs took precedence. Still cultural clashes that required patience and diplomacy and occasional shouting matches. But functional. Growing. Proof that two peoples could share space without killing each other. Thora Steelheart stood on porch of cabin that had expanded. Part Declan's original structure. Part orc construction. Blended architecture. Neither pure human nor pure orc. Something new. She was 32 now. War chief of Combined Defense Force. Humans and orcs serving together. Protecting settlement. Maintaining peace. Still warrior. But warrior with different mission. Declan was 37, still farming, now with help, teaching mixed groups of human and orc children about medicine, about crops, about working together. 3 chickens had become 30. Washington, Jefferson, and Franklin had died of natural causes years ago, been replaced by Lincoln, Roosevelt, and Tubman, because Declan's naming scheme continued a small rebellion against forgetting where bridges came from. And in the yard, two children played, son 3 years old, daughter 6 months. Hybrid genetics creating features that were both and neither. Green-tinged skin on the boy, human eyes on the girl. Bridge-made flesh, storm clouds gathered on horizon. Spring storms, regular, natural, not metaphorical. Knock on door, Thora answered. Young human woman stood there, soaking wet. Behind her young orc man, protecting her, both running from something. Please, the woman said, we need shelter. There's people chasing us. We just want to be together, but Thora's son appeared at the door, 3 years old, didn't hesitate, hadn't been taught this, just knew it. Come in, storm's coming. You shouldn't be outside. The couple entered, grateful, desperate, hopeful. Thora looked at her son, saw kindness given without thought, saw a bridge being built by next generation without being taught, just doing it because that's what you do. Declan appeared from back room, saw new arrivals, understood immediately. I'll make tea. You're safe here. The young woman started crying, relief. Thank you, thank you. We didn't know where else to go. My family won't accept him. His clan won't accept me. Everyone says it's wrong, but it's not wrong, Thora said. Voice firm, Kendeman. It's hard, but not wrong. She gestured to Declan, to their children, to settlement visible through window. Everything worth building is hard, she smiled. I'm Thora Steelheart. This is Declan Graves, and you're safe here. Welcome to Thornwood Bridge. The wooden chicken still sat on mantel, blood-stained cloth framed above fireplace. Symbols of beginning. Reminders of cost. Evidence that bridges could be built. Outside storm broke. Rain hammering roof. Thunder rolling across valley. Wind trying to tear world apart. Inside warmth. Light. Safety. Partnership. Thora stood beside Declan, watching their son explain to the young couple about the settlement, about how different peoples could live together, about bridges. He has your way with words, Declan said quietly. He has your heart, Thora replied. Think we're doing okay as parents, as partners. I think we're doing exactly what we set out to do, Thora said. Building bridge, one storm at a time, one person at a time, one yes at a time. She took his hand. Familiar gesture now. 5 years of partnership. 5 years of proving that claim made in desperation could become foundation for something real. I claimed you for tactics, she said softly, kept you for truth, and stayed for love. That's not very warrior-like, Declan teased. Good thing I'm not just warrior anymore, she smiled. I'm partner, mother, builder, and occasionally when necessary warrior who fights for peace. Outside, storm raged. Inside, new refugees found shelter. Children played. Partners stood together. The story that began with blood-stained cloth and desperate claim had become something bigger. Settlement. Hope. Proof that peace required warriors willing to fight for it. Farmers brave enough to say yes. And children who'd inherit world where bridge was normal instead of impossible. War Chief Gorak Steelheart, retired now, sat by fire. Watched his daughter. Watched her family. Watched evidence of his decision to allow impossible claim. You were right, he said to her. About what? About everything. He smiled. About peace. About partnership. About bridges being worth building, even when everyone said impossible. You taught me strategy, Thora said. I just applied it to peace instead of war. Best application I've ever seen. The storm passed. Always did. Dawn would come. Always did. And in the morning, Thornwood Bridge settlement would continue. Growing, building, proving. One blood-stained cloth at a time. One wooden chicken at a time. One storm at a time. One yes at a time. Because some debts are paid in love. Some bridges take generations to build. Some storms bring exactly what you need when you didn't know you needed it. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is claim someone when claim makes no sense. Say yes when yes is terrifying. Stand in middle ground when both sides pull. Thora Steelheart had claimed Declan Graves 5 years ago. Life debt carried, Partnership forged, bridge built. And in building it, they changed world. One person at a time, one family at a time, one settlement at a time. The story ended, the legacy began. And somewhere in the distance, another storm gathered. Another knock would come, another refuge would be needed. And the children of Thornwood Bridge would answer the door. No hesitation, no fear. Just kindness learned from parents who'd proven that peace was possible. If you were brave enough to fight for it, build for it, claim it, and never let go. The end and the beginning. Always both, forever.